right, good evening, everybody. It's good to see everybody here. My name, again, is Nick Capadese. I am the Director of Financial Aid at St. Elizabeth University, and I've been doing financial aid at different schools, a couple different schools in New Jersey, big public schools, small private schools. Been doing it for 15 years now. I'm the president of the New Jersey Association of Financial Aid Administrators, which is exactly as exciting as it sounds. But every year I still need to get updated and trained on this sort of thing. So it's wonderful that you're here. We're going to go over a lot of stuff to give you some like baseline knowledge on this, but if I need training every year after doing it for 15 years, you know, don't expect to walk out of here as an expert. Make sure that you're using the resources available to you as we move forward. All right, so I am here on behalf of the New Jersey Higher Education Student Assistance Authority, otherwise known as HESA. They are the New Jersey government agency that provides financial aid and these sorts of informational resources for students in the state. HESA actually gives out more money per student than any other state in the country, so we're very proud of that fact. But most people have never heard of HESA before when you start this process. So if you get any mail from them or emails from HESA, don't just ignore it. It is legitimate, and they're ultimately trying to give you money. So as a financial aid professional, all financial aid offices in all institutions have the same sorts of goals, and that's obviously to help you be able to figure out a way to finance your education and navigate the oftentimes confusing world of college financial aid. But we have to do that, you know. The federal government and the New Jersey state government, they are part of where the financial aid comes from, and if you know anything about the government, there's a lot of red tape, a lot of hoops to jump through, a lot of policies and procedures and regulations and statutes. So we would love to give everybody as much financial aid as possible, but there is limited funding available and a lot of rules and regulations on how we can administer that funding. So each college is going to create a policy to make sure that they're distributing these limited pot of resources in an equitable manner so it can help the students who really need it. Okay? There we go. Oh, went too far. So, like I said, the single biggest source of financial aid is the federal government. The second biggest source of financial aid is the state, and then colleges and universities. But that's where we really start getting into differences. Every college and university and community college and trade school is going to have different types of financial aid that they offer. And it's because of that one of the best pieces of advice I can give you at this point is to say that you should never allow the sticker price of an institution to scare you away from applying to it, okay? It sounds pretty self-serving given that I work at a small private institution, which tend to be a little more costly than the public schools, but it is the reality. When you go to a school's website right now and it says tuition fees and room and board is $60,000, that number is meaningless at this point of the process because it is almost never indicative of what you're going to have to pay. And most of the schools with the higher price tag are able to more heavily discount their tuition with institutional funding as opposed to public schools in an effort to get their prices, your out-of-pocket costs, in line to what it would be at a school that appears on the surface to be more affordable. Now that will not be, that rule is not across the board. That won't be the reality for everybody in this room, but it is common enough for the prices to to be comparable for you to never allow the sticker price of a school to scare you away from applying. All right? Outside of college universities and the state and the federal government, another big source of financial aid is outside organizations or private scholarship donors. Right here in your own community, there are scholarships available, okay? Make sure you're using those resources. When I was in a senior in high school, I was definitely not the valedictorian. And I received a scholarship from the Sicilian Citizens Club of Bayonne, New Jersey. What does a 17-year-old kid know about the Sicilian Citizens Club of Bayonne, New Jersey? Absolutely nothing. Like, they go there to eat spaghetti and play bocce ball is what I thought, but I got that scholarship not because I was a straight A student, because I absolutely wasn't. It was because I was probably one of like 2 or 3 people to apply for it. All right, so that money is out there. Working in a financial aid office, I talk to organizations like that every year who get 0 applicants, okay, for money they're trying to give away. Now, you're not going to get a $10,000 scholarship from the Sicilian Club, but, you know, $500 here, $1,000 there really builds up and goes a long way. Those sorts of organizations, church organizations, local social clubs, local businesses, they all offer scholarships. And in addition to that, there are national scholarship databases that you should look at as well. There is a link for one of them at the end of this presentation, but one that we always recommend is fastweb.com. It's easy to remember. But you just go on there and make a profile. You're a college senior from New Jersey who played softball and volunteered at the soup kitchen, and they'll match you with scholarships from all across the country that you can apply for. So make sure you're leaving no stone unturned in your search for every dollar that's available. The types of financial aid are grants, scholarships, and employment opportunities. Grants and scholarships are what the industry term is gift aid. I'm not a fan of that term because it's not necessarily a gift. In some way, shape, or form, you are earning that funding, but that is the term. But it simply means grants. And whenever you hear grant or scholarship, it's something that you are receiving to help pay towards your college costs, and you do not have to repay that in the end. All right, what they call self-help aid is loans and work study, employment opportunities. So when it comes to loans, you do have to repay them, regardless of whether or not you complete your degree requirements, you do have to repay them. And employment opportunities is another big one that oftentimes gets overlooked. It essentially means the work study program. It gets overlooked because it doesn't function like other forms of financial aid in that it doesn't get deducted from your bill, but it is fantastic opportunity. Studies routinely show that students who engage in work study have better employment outcomes after graduation than students who don't. And it allows you to get really good professional work experience on your college campus without ever having to worry about sacrificing your academics because you're working off campus somewhere and they need you and won't allow you to take that extra time off you need to study or anything like that. So work study is a fantastic program if you're eligible. Factors that may influence institutional aid. So I mentioned that the sources of financial aid are colleges and universities. Most of these schools, almost everyone that I know of at least, is going to automatically evaluate you for your eligibility for a merit-based scholarship when you apply for admission. All right, so you don't have to necessarily apply for the scholarship. You submit your admissions application, they're going to evaluate you for a merit scholarship. These are the types of things that they're looking at. All right, the main thing is your GPA. So especially if you're juniors in the room and you're looking to position yourself to get the best scholarship possible, just focus on getting that GPA up, because that is the main factor that they're looking at. The GPA and the class load, if AP or honors courses are available to you and you're able to take them successfully without, you know, driving yourself crazy and pulling all your hair out. SAT and ACT, the tests obviously are important, but many schools are also going test optional for them, so you can receive merit scholarships without submitting those test scores if you don't think those test scores are going to help you. Like, that's how I was. I wasn't a straight A student, but I was, you know, a straight B student. I was pretty good, but I was not a good test taker. The SAT was not reflective of my ability to succeed at the college level. But when I was coming up, you had to do it. You had to submit those test scores, and that hurt me a little bit when it came to college admissions, even though when I went to college, I was very successful while I was there. So really, if you're looking to position yourself for the best merit scholarship, if you're a really good test taker, submit those scores because it could boost you up. But a lot of these schools now are test optional. So if you're like me and those scores are not reflective of your ability to succeed, it might behoove you to not submit those scores for certain schools. Athletic ability is here with an asterisk because only NCAA Division II or Division I schools can offer you any sort of benefit due to athletic ability, okay? Division III schools can't even give you a free meal ticket in the cafeteria. So if you're an athlete and you're looking for some sort of athletic scholarship or benefit, you would have to be looking at an NCAA Division I or Division II school. Also, there's other scholarships. I said that these schools are going to automatically evaluate you for scholarships. There's other scholarships that they might not, that you might have to apply for separately. Two private schools that I worked at both had community service related scholarships that you had to apply for separately and say, hey, I've done community service when I was in high school. I was an Eagle Scout. I, you know, like I said before, volunteered at the soup kitchen or gave out Thanksgiving turkeys. And they can evaluate you for those sorts of scholarships. But you have to apply for them separately. So make sure whenever you're applying, whatever schools you're applying to, that you're contacting the financial aid offices there or the admissions counselors there and asking them if you're applying for every available scholarship at that school, because it might not always be obvious that these things are available. Okay? And you, again, you do not want to leave any stone unturned. You do not want to leave any dollar on the table. Okay? So, like I said before, that you should never let the sticker price of a school scare you away from applying. One way you can kind of find out what your out-of-pocket or what they call your net price will be at a certain school is by their net price calculator. Every institution in the United States is required to have this on their website, and it's a way for you to figure out what sort of financial aid you'll be eligible for at that school. It's a good tool. It's not the be-all, end-all. It's only as good as the information you plug into it. It's only as good as how often the schools update their algorithm that it uses to spit out the information to you. And it doesn't take into consideration, it takes into consideration your grades and your finances to figure out your financial aid, but it doesn't take into consideration those college essays you're working so hard on writing and the recommendations that you're getting from your teachers that are just talking about how fantastic you are. Obviously, this computer program doesn't have that human element, so it's not a perfect system, but it will give you at least some sort of idea what you may be eligible for at a particular school. So we're going to go through all the different types of financial aid right now, and like I said, the single biggest form of financial aid is the federal government, all right? In order to qualify for any of the aid you find here, or anytime we say federal aid, in order to qualify for any of it, you have to complete a FAFSA application. You have to do a FAFSA application every year that you're enrolled in school. And most of these financial aid programs, especially this first one, the federal Pell Grant, They are based on your financial need as determined by the FAFSA based on the information that you provide. All right, so not everybody's going to get this. You only get it if you have the requisite financial need to qualify. So this year, the maximum federal Pell Grant is $7,395 a year. It is what we call an entitlement grant, meaning if you qualify for it, you will get it. When you complete the FAFSA, it'll tell you right on your confirmation page if you're eligible for the Pell Grant and how much Pell Grant you're eligible for. And if it says that, you'll get it. You'll get it whether you go to Middlesex County College or you go to Harvard. You'll get that same amount of Pell Grant at either school, okay? I mentioned the entitlement because one thing I want you to really take away from this is do your FAFSA and all your financial aid stuff, do it early, okay? Maybe not on the day it comes out, but do it early, okay? We always want you to have your FAFSA done every year before February 1st. That should always be your goal, okay? And one of the many reasons that I say that, I'm not going to go through all the reasons because we'll be here all night, but one of the many reasons is this next one. The SEOG grant is not an entitlement award. It is earmarked for the students who have the highest amount of financial need. So when you do the FAFSA, it's going to spit out this number. It used to be called the EFC, but the name is changing now to the SAI, but it essentially means the same thing. That's the amount of money that the FAFSA thinks you as a family can pay out of pocket towards the education for this year, okay? So students who have an SAI or an EFC of 0 the FAFSA is saying, we don't believe, based on the information you provided, that you can afford to pay anything out of pocket. So you need the most help, right? Those are the students who are going to qualify for the SEOG grant. Now, that one, though, is not entitlement. So even if you may qualify, that doesn't mean you're definitely going to get it. The schools will have their own policies on how they give it out. And also, the federal government every year gives each individual school an allocation, okay? So once a school awards all that money, gives it all out, there's no more left, okay? So if you do your FAFSA late and you're somebody who otherwise would have qualified, and if you qualify for that, it means you really sort of need it in order to help you make it through make your college dream a reality. You won't get it because you did your FAFSA late. So make sure we're doing everything as early as possible. Before February 1st should always be the goal. The Teach Grant is another federal grant. You can't get it until your junior year, and it is for students, obviously, who are interested in pursuing careers in the teaching profession. It does come with a little caveat. I mentioned anything that says grants or scholarships means you don't have to repay it. This is the one possible exception. So, Teach Grant, if you're interested in it, you have to sign what they call an agreement to serve before you are given this Teach Grant. And on the agreement to serve on the federal website will list a whole bunch of approved school districts in your state. And your agreement to serve is essentially saying, I will teach at one of these districts for 4 years within 8 years of my graduation date. You with me there? If you do not fulfill that agreement, this Teach Grant converts itself into a loan, okay, that you then have to repay. All right, so it's very important that if you are looking to the Teach Grant to help you pay for college, that you really have your heart set on your career path, or it could become an unexpected additional expense 8 years down the line. All right? Nobody could see this. I don't expect you to see this, so we're going to, but of course this presentation will be shared with you. But this is, because this is a HESA presentation, we're going to go through every single piece of financial aid that they offer. Now, I mentioned in order to get federal aid, you have to do a FAFSA application. One of the qualifications for the FAFSA is that the student be a U.S. citizen or what we call an eligible non-citizen, which would be a permanent resident, a green card holder, have a asylum-seeking status or refugee status. They have to have a valid Social Security number. That's the student. The parent's citizenship status does not matter, okay? So it's very important. If the student is a dreamer or undocumented, it does not meet that qualification, they can't do a FAFSA, they cannot qualify for that federal aid. However, they can qualify for state aid. So the state of New Jersey will, if you do a FAFSA, they're going to use your FAFSA to determine your eligibility for state aid. If you're not eligible to do a FAFSA, they have their own separate application called the New Jersey Alternative Financial Aid Application. It's essentially a carbon copy of the FAFSA, asks the same sort of questions, does the same calculation, but it'll allow dreamers to then be eligible for state financial aid only. You have a question?
Yeah. How about the alien resident, like people like me? We are on the H-1 visa. We are a foreigner who has had the work authorization here. How about our kids? There might be other people who might be running on L1 or some other visa status. Where they fit into all this?
I'm not sure about, off the top of my head, I don't know about that particular visa. We look into it, but again, the parent status is irrelevant. It's the student status that matters. Okay? So if the...
My daughter will be like H4, a dependent visa.
Okay.
So, which probably does not qualify for anything that you said.
It may not. I don't know that 100% off the top of my head, but it may not. But she could still apply for the state aid. Okay? So we'll go through the different types of financial aid from the state. Again, like I said, you have to file a FAFSA. The other differences with the state aid is that in order to get it, you have to be a New Jersey resident, and the student's parents have to be New Jersey residents, and you have to go to a school in New Jersey. Okay? The state, all this millions of dollars that the state gives out, it all comes out of your pocket. It's all taxpayer money that gets funneled to these students, so they don't want you taking that taxpayer money and going to a school in Pennsylvania. All right, so you got to be a New Jersey resident, attending a New Jersey school in order to qualify, and you also have to be enrolled full-time. So that's a big one. The New Jersey Tag Award, which will, I think that's the next one. Oh, actually, they skipped the New Jersey Tag slide now. But the New Jersey Tag Award is sort of like the state's version of the Pell Grant. It's their biggest financial aid program. It's for students with financial need. But it's a bigger grant, especially if you're attending a private institution. The maximum Pell Grant was $7,395. The maximum New Jersey Tag Award at a school like St. Elizabeth is $14,404. All right, so it's a lot of money. So if you're attending St. Elizabeth and you get that maximum New Jersey Tag Award, you're enrolled as a full-time student, which is typically 12 credits in any given semester. So that would translate at most schools to either 3 or 4 classes. So 12 credits, you're full-time. If you're enrolled at St. Elizabeth and they say you can get $14,404, but you're only enrolled for 11 credits, you get 0. Okay, so it's really important if you're a New Jersey Tag recipient to make sure that you're enrolled full-time. All right, the one exception to that is if you're attending a county college. So if you're at a community college, you can get New Jersey Tag if you're enrolled less than full-time, on a less than full-time basis. Summer Tag is something that we're very excited about. This past summer was the first time we rolled it out, and it was sort of like a last-minute thing, so a lot of students didn't know about it. But most financial aid programs, when you enroll in college, you have the main semesters, the fall semester from September through December, and the spring semester from January through May. Your financial aid will be applied to those 2 semesters. And traditionally, if students wanted to attend summer classes, that's usually like extra. That's a bonus. If you want to attend summer, you got to pay for that yourself, okay? Now, a lot of schools discount their summer tuition to help you with that, but there usually is no financial aid for the summer. Now, students who receive the federal Pell Grant and students who receive New Jersey TAG can continue to get those awards during the summer term, and they don't have to be enrolled full-time. As long as you're enrolled for 6 credits in the summer, you can get those awards, which is fantastic because the summer terms are condensed, so you get those credits in a shorter amount of time. It helps you accelerate your time towards graduation, or at least stay on pace to graduate in 4 years. And since summer tuition is discounted on top of getting this financial aid, it could help you graduate with a little less debt or a little less money coming out of your pocket. So summer enrollment is something, especially in New Jersey, we're really trying to grow. I know students want their summer off, but it is something that we are trying to convince students to take advantage of. EOF is another great financial aid program offered by the state because it's not just financial aid. It's sort of the state's answer to SEOG. It's for the students who have the highest amount of financial need, but it's also a summer program prior to your freshman year, where you come on campus, take a class, and earn college credit for free before the school year actually starts. And you're there with the other EOF students, and you get built-in mentoring and tutoring for all 4 years while you're in school. You have to indicate on the admissions application that you want to be considered for EOF, but if you think you might be eligible, absolutely, it is something I would highly recommend because it has all those great benefits in addition to the financial aid portion of it. The state also has, they don't just give out financial need-based money, they also have scholarships. The Governor's Urban Scholarship for anybody in the top 5% of their class who also lives in one of these districts that you can't read, but again, this will be shared with you. So if you live in one of these towns, you're in the top 5% of your class at the end of junior year, you can apply for the Governor's Urban Scholarship. New Jersey Stars, another merit one, not as stringent. If you're in the top 15% of your class, you can get this, but New Jersey Stars is only for students attending community college, okay? But if you attend that community college, get your associate's degree, and you graduate with a 3.25 GPA or better, and then you decide, hey, I got my associate's, now I want to go to a 4-year school for the next 2 years and finish my bachelor's degree. If you did all that, you can continue to get New Jersey Stars at the 4-year school in the New Jersey Stars 2 program. I know this slide is a little bit cut off here. But the New Jersey Stars 2 program, you can only receive it if you got NJ Stars at the community college level, but it does allow you to continue within that program. The Governor's Industry Vocation Scholarship for Women and Minorities, it is all there in the name. If women and minorities are interested in going to a technical vocational trade school in the state, they can qualify for this scholarship for up to $2,000 a year if their adjusted gross income is less than $60,000 a year. AGI, adjusted gross income, that's like the main number on your tax return that says this is how much money we made this year. And this slide's important because it says less than $60,000 a year. I want to point that out. This is something the state of New Jersey is extremely excited about, part of their 65 by 25 initiative, where they are hoping to have 65% of all eligible adults to have some sort of college credential by the year 2025, is the New Jersey College Promise, which contains 2 main programs. All right, the first, which has been around for a little while now, is the Community College Opportunity Grant, which means if your AGI, and when I say your AGI, I mean the family's AGI, so the student's parents' AGI. If it is between $0 and $65,000, you will go to that community college completely tuition free, okay? Tuition and fees are 100% paid for. You will have to pay for books and supplies and transportation and meals and housing if you choose to do all that stuff, but your tuition is 100%, completely free. I pointed that out that the last one was less than 60,000, and this one says between 0 and 65,000. It's an important distinction because your AGI can be negative on your tax return. And negative AGI is usually people who own their own businesses or are self-employed and they take losses or claim a lot of I can't think of the word right now, but your AGI can be negative. If it is negative, don't shoot the messenger. This is the state policy, but if it is negative, the state of New Jersey does not, it says that you do not qualify for the community college opportunity grant, okay? But they just recently added additional tiers. So if your AGI is between 65 and 80, you will pay 50% of the tuition, all right? So you automatically get a 50% discount, or if it's between $80,000 and $100,000 a year, you'll get 33% off of the tuition and fees at the community college level. All right, so it's really as simple as that. It's just, that's the only qualifying factor really, is you're enrolled for at least 6 credits, your AGI has to be within that range.
That's a guarantee.
Yeah, you have to meet the other qualifications for the state aid, being a resident and staying in state, but yes, as long as the family's AGI is in that range, and the state may ask you to prove that, so I'll get into that a little later with the verification process, but yes, that is a guarantee. And now it has been expanded. Last year was the first year they rolled this out completely, but the other program is the Garden State Guarantee, which it basically expands that into the 4-year public institutions in New Jersey. The catch is that it's basically the same exact thing. 0 to 65, you're tuition free at any of the 4-year public institutions in New Jersey, okay? The difference is that the other tiers aren't based on a percentage. If you're 65 to 80, they guarantee you will not pay more than $7,500 for the year, okay? And if your AGI is 80 to 100, they're saying you're not going to pay more than $10,000 for the year, okay? The catch here, though, is that you can't take advantage of this program until your junior year, okay? So if you're going to a 4-year public institution in New Jersey and you fit within one of these tiers, your freshman and sophomore year, you're going to be paying the regular price and then take advantage of this program in junior and senior year, okay? The other part of the qualifications that you have to maintain satisfactory academic progress. That is across the board for all financial aid programs. Satisfactory academic progress just simply means that you're making progress towards graduation and that your GPA is at a level where you can actually graduate with it. So if you're not making satisfactory academic progress, there's other issues besides just your financial aid. Another program they have is 3+1 degree programs. It says right there the students must enroll in a bona fide 3+1 program because not all schools participate, not all programs qualify. So if you're interested in this, make sure you're asking questions about it. But the gist of it is that traditionally, if you, for whatever reason, whether it was money, whether it was preference, or maybe you just weren't ready to step into a bachelor's degree program, traditionally, if a student wanted to go to a county college first, get their associates, and then move on to a 4-year college and get their bachelor's, they would spend 2 years at the community college level, get your associate's degree, and then go to the 4-year school for junior and senior year to continue on towards your bachelor's. Some of these 3+1 programs will allow you now to stay at the community college for your junior year. and take your classes toward your bachelor's degree at the community college. The benefit of that is that community colleges are significantly less costly than the four-year institution. So you get an extra year at the community college price, and then you move on to the four-year school for your final senior year to graduate then with your bachelor's degree. All right? That's all like the fun stuff, but the reality of college these days is that most of us will have to be paying something out of pocket or taking out some sort of loan. That's just the reality. You know, full ride scholarships are extremely rare. We all have to contribute something, okay? So really, what we want to do, most colleges offer monthly payment plans, okay? So the first thing we want to do is sort of sit down and figure out how much money can we pay out of pocket, okay? Do an honest accounting of what that realistically looks like for you, all right? And for some people, the answer is going to be zero. It's going to be nothing, and that's okay as long as we know what the answer is. Because when it comes to student loans, there are a lot of protections out there for students, and financial aid counselors should help you out and counsel you and give you the right advice when it comes to taking student loans, because a lot of the horror stories you hear out there about student loans are really the result of, in my experience, what I like to call inadvertent overborrowing, where students are borrowing because, and again, this isn't the student's fault, because I feel like it is extremely unreasonable to expect students at 17, 18 years old to have a really good grasp on what it means to take these loans out and what the consequences actually are. It's sort of a foreign concept to them, and it doesn't really hit home until they actually are repaying them. So a lot of times these students are just taking loans that they're told they're eligible to take, or they're taking loans that schools are saying, well, you can use your loan to pay all these other expenses too, not just your tuition, and they think, well, that sounds like a great idea. So they're taking all these loans, and the next thing they know, they're borrowing way more money than they actually need to get through their education. All right, so what you really should be doing first, figure out how much you can pay out of pocket, try your best to stick to that number, and then work backwards from there, and that's how you will figure out exactly how much money you may need to borrow, okay? Every student who does a FAFSA is going to get $5,500 in federal student loans. You're going to do a FAFSA, you're going to get that money, you don't have to take it. You can, of course, decline any loan that comes your way, but these are student loans in the student's name. If you need loans in addition to that, which again is not in and of itself a bad thing as long as you understand what you need to borrow and don't overdo it. There's two main options. There are... Okay, clean up in 109. There's two main options. There is another federal loan that can be in the parent's name called a Parent Plus loan, where the parent is the actual borrower of the loan, not the student. The other option is private student loans, where the student can be the borrower, but since they don't have established credit, they'll very likely need a cosigner in order to qualify anyway, which doesn't have to be a parent, but 99% of the time is a parent. The difference between the two, we used to say it's a slam dunk, go do the Parent Plus loan. That's the best way to go. But over the years, if you can read this, the Parent Plus loan, which used to be around 4% interest rate, for this current academic year is at 8.05%. Okay, it's hard to recommend that to students or to parents. And the thing about the Parent Plus loan is that everybody who qualifies for this loan gets the same interest rate. That is the interest rate. Okay, The private student loans, interest rates vary wildly. Okay, you can get an interest rate around 4%, or you can get an interest rate around 14%. It depends on your credit rating, the credit rating of the cosigner, and the repayment terms that you choose for the loan. So really, if you need one of these additional loans, for my money, the best way to do it is to just figure, can I beat that Parent Plus loan interest rate? Is my credit good enough to get a 4, 5, 6% interest rate with a private loan? And if that's the case, then yeah, do a private loan. Take the one with the better interest rate. All the private lenders have gotten much better in terms of customer service and repayment options over the years, so their interest rate really is what tips the scales for me. But if your credit rate's not that great and you're just on the edge of being approved, and they're going to approve you but offer you a 13% interest rate, then the Plus loan's probably the way to go. All right, so NJ class you see up on the screen because that is HESA's version of the private loan. So of course they're going to put that in their presentation. But there are dozens of private loans out there. While financial aid counselors are not legally allowed to recommend one to you, they can sort of walk you through the process and make sure you understand how you can compare the different lenders and get the one that's right for you. Yes?
Quick question. How come a lot of these private student loans don't allow the student to get a loan without a cosigner? Because essentially, I have a son that goes out of state, and even though he's getting a lot of grants from the school itself, he's still spending a lot of money, so we have to get private loans. And like, we've tried getting him loans on his own, so we're not caught in the crossfire if he can't pay it, but they're going to come after us. How come they don't give the option of getting these students to get the loans on their own, even though they don't have the credit history?
So the short answer to that is that these private lenders aren't backed by the federal government, and they're private businesses. So they're taking on a lot more risk. And the students don't have a credit rating that's established in order to take out a loan. I mean, these are big loans. Sometimes these students, they might be taking out $30,000, $40,000 over the course of their education, which is, many times it's bigger than a car loan. It's bigger than any loan you're going to get outside of a mortgage. So those companies are protecting themselves. There was a few years ago, the name of it is escaping me now, but a few years ago there was a private lender who thought that they can tap into that piece of the market and say, we're going to be the lender that's going to approve loans to students who can't get approved at other lenders. We're going to allow students to borrow. If they don't have a cosigner, we're going to allow them to borrow when they get denied elsewhere. And that lender lasted about 2 years before they went out of business. So that is the reason that these lenders are.
Yeah, because you talk about all those grants and being that I'm kind of like considered, I guess, middle class. We don't qualify for anything.
Yeah, there is what I do call like the forgotten middle, and that really is sort of one of the hardest places to be in, because now granted, students who have the highest amount of financial need and they're qualifying for all these grants, they're still struggling too, because when their bill comes and they have to pay $1,000, they're not able to come up with that money anyway, even though in the grand scheme of things that might not sound like a lot. So everybody's struggling, but the students whose families are in the middle of the pack and they make just enough money to not qualify for any of this, but not nearly enough to be able to afford the education out of their pocket, those are the ones who end up taking on more of the debt load, which is why a lot of the institutional scholarships and need-based money is really, and the community scholarships is really where you would find the most help. Yeah.
Yeah, which is why they give you the estimated family contribution of
I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've never met anybody who saw their EFC and agreed with what it said. Yeah.
Can you please go back to the previous screen? Yeah, you said about subsidized loan for student, right? Is it also dependent on parents' income, or is it like valid for everyone?
So the question is, these loans you see on the screen, the subsidized and unsubsidized, is dependent on the parent's income. So like I said, every student is going to qualify for $5,500 in student loans, but the answer is yes. So the reason that there's two loans there is they are exactly the same in every way except one. And that is the subsidized loan is need-based. So it is dependent on the parent's income. Out of that $5,500, up to $35,000 can be subsidized, okay? But it could be any other that $55,000 can be any sort of combination of these two loans, but that's the maximum subsidized you can get. And the difference between the two is these federal loans, students do not have to start repaying them until 6 months after their last date of attendance. So hopefully that means 6 months after graduation, right? The unsubsidized loan is collecting interest against the principal balance while the students are attending school, okay? Now, you're not required to make those, to pay that loan back, but one of the benefits of these federal loans is that there's also no penalty to making payments. So if you wanted to make interest payments as you go before you're required to, you can do that. If you went on a trip down to AC and hit the jackpot and you have a little extra money to make one payment, you can make one payment towards the loan and not have any obligation to continue making payments, right? The difference, though, is the subsidized portion, which requires financial need, that is interest-free until repayment begins. So there's no interest being added to that loan while the student's attending school.
Everyone is qualified for that, right?
But not everybody will be qualified for that. That's correct.
Second thing, like for each year? For each year.
So the question is, do you get this for 4 years or for each year? Everything we're talking about, every form of financial aid is for the academic year. You have to reapply for it each academic year, okay? So in theory, your eligibility could change year to year, but as long as, if your family income situation is relatively the same, it's probably not going to change. But again, if you go down to AC and hit the big jackpot, the next year you might not get the same amount of financial aid. Okay, so it could potentially change, but for most students it really doesn't. Okay.
And,
Yes.
one more thing regarding to local scholarships. You mentioned one website, but is there anything else that you can see around local scholarships that are available? What you can suggest?
Okay. We have a Google Classroom with scholarships, and as we get the local scholarships, we post them in there, okay? If you attended my senior college night, the bottom line, okay? If you have a student apply for 20 to 30 scholarships, we have students like that, right? They come in, what's the next scholarship? They apply, they write scholarships, they write the essays. Scholarships require writing, okay? They're not just going to give you money, okay? So the more scholarships you apply for, the better chance you are to receive money. If you do 20, you might get 2 or 3, okay? If you do 1 or 2, your chances are, basically 0. So the harder you work, the more local scholarships you're going to get. The local scholarships come out in the spring, okay? So students that have community service, that are our top students, they're the ones that are going to be receiving the scholarships. So you just got to keep looking at those scholarship offers, and you got to, listen, my advice to you, have your son or daughter apply for 1 or 2 scholarships per week, right? Go to FastWeb. Did you do one this week? Yes or no? Okay? Did you do one the next week? Yes or no? And just keep applying. 1,000 here, 500 here, 2,500 there. 2,000 there, it all adds up.
So why I asked this question, because he mentioned like he didn't even know at that point in time when he was 17, this scholarship that you were talking about. It's very easy to miss out on those scholarships, right? Unless we know that.
Right.
So that's the reason I
You
asked.
gotta keep just looking at that Google scholarship. And another advice, and both my daughters have graduated, we're done, but now the loans come in, right? So, okay, so I had one daughter was nursing scholarship, nursing major. It took her 5 weeks to graduate. She has $25,000 to pay back. Okay? My other daughter graduated on time. She has $20,000. Okay? It's very, very important for you to graduate on time. Okay? And it's hard. It's not easy. Okay? And the way you graduate on time, okay, you take your AP classes, you take the exams, hopefully you earn college credits. Boom. Okay? You take summer classes. Keep them on time. Okay? It's not easy. Okay? I don't want to go into my daughter and took the extra year. It's a whole different story, but it happens. Okay? But if you have to pay an extra year, they were at the University of Alabama. I had to pay an extra $40,000 a year. Okay? So it's very, very important to keep. And the other thing I want to, express it's not where you start, it's where you finish. Okay? So I've said this a million times. Once you graduate, Jamie, right? Like your friend, they don't care. You got to do what's best for your son or daughter. Okay? No one else cares. You're on your own. Okay? So these are family decisions that you have to sit down. This is what we can afford. Okay? If you're comfortable with this amount of debt, these are hard questions. Okay? But this is reality. Right? This is what you need to start doing. Right? Oh, you want to go to NYU? It's $70,000 a year. Okay? You want to graduate with $100,000 worth of debt? That's the question you might have to ask. So you have to start having hard conversations. It's not easy. Okay? But these are things that you have to do. Okay? And if we have kids that want to be doctors, they want to be lawyers, they want to be MBAs, okay? You're not talking 4 years, you're talking 6, you're talking 8, you're talking 10, right? So you got to look at the big picture, right? If you're going pre-med, you want to be a doctor, it's not 4 years, it's 8 years, okay? If you're an NJ Star, and you can get 4 years basically kind of paid for, and then you go on to med school, okay? I know a lot of our top schools, our top students, they don't want to start at Middlesex. But no one cares. Okay? You got to do what's best for you. Okay? That's the bottom line. Okay? And the other thing is, and he's mentioned it too, if you do not do the FAFSA form, you receive 0. Okay? That's the bottom line. So you have to do it regardless of your income. You have to do the FAFSA. And do it early. Okay? If you do it early, okay, it's going to be in your best benefit.
Question is, when is it coming out?
Yeah, well, I'm sure we're going to get it. Rules have changed. It used to be October 1st, but now it's changed, so I'm sure that's down low.
So are we going to cover like what's changed in FAFSA, right?
Sort of, yeah. So just to wrap that up, the scholarship search doesn't end either once you enroll in college. We get scholarships every year that are for existing college students, specifically for sophomores, specifically for juniors, specifically for STEM majors, specifically for theater majors. So the scholarship search is sort of ongoing until you walk across that stage on graduation. And one other point I wanted to mention, based on your comment with the private loans, is that many of them offer something called cosigner release. So when you're shopping for private loans, it might be something that you're interested in, and it basically says, they'll all have different terms, but it basically says if the student makes 12 consecutive on-time payments towards their loan, then whoever is listed as the cosigner can be removed from the loan completely. So it's a good benefit. It's something you might want to pay attention to. But let me move on in the interest of time. CSS Profile, one of the main financial aid applications. I'm not really going to talk about it, really, because I don't know much about it, because I never worked at a school that required it. All right, People hear about the FAFSA is sort of hard to complete. The CSS profile is much more in-depth than the FAFSA. And if you make over $100,000 a year, there is a cost associated with it. So I say that not to scare you away, but don't just do it because it's on your checklist. Only do it if you're applying to a school that requires it, and most schools in this area do not. So just only do it if you need to. But the FAFSA, on the other hand, I can sit here, did I go past? Okay. I could sit here all day and tell you why you should do it. I have people every year saying, I make too much money, I'm not going to get anything, why should I do the FAFSA? And yes, you should do it anyway, just take my word for it. Like I said, do it early, but are we seniors or juniors mostly? Who's seniors? All right, we're seniors. So you guys are the great guinea pigs for this year with the FAFSA. Okay, this year is the single biggest change in financial aid policy since the FAFSA was created. Okay, and in any other year, and people who have done the FAFSA will know this, you would be able to do it today for next year. October, it usually comes out on October 1st every year. It's not out yet. They didn't tell us when it's coming out yet. They say it's going to come out in December. That's all they said, so who wants to bet it's going to be December 31st? And also, with all this looming talk of a government shutdown, I wouldn't be surprised if it extends past December. So it's going to make your window to get that FAFSA done early a lot tighter, because like I said, we want it done before February 1st. That's your goal. And unfortunately, you know, the start date of next year's first day of school isn't getting pushed back because the FAFSA got pushed back. So it just makes your window smaller to get this done. So all I can say is just be prepared for it. Do stuff like this, you know, read anything you can about announcements about it in the press. Because honestly, we don't know all that much about the FAFSA right now. They are simplifying it. And they really are simplifying it. The current FAFSA has something called skip logic, where not everybody will answer the same questions on the FAFSA based on how you answer previous questions, but the maximum number of questions is something like 138, okay? The new FAFSA, the maximum number of questions is going to be below 40, all right? So it's going to, and another thing is that it was optional on the current FAFSA to do something called the IRS data retrieval tool, where you will authorize the FAFSA to download your tax information from the IRS so you don't have to manually go in and put your income information on the FAFSA. It's no longer optional, okay? It is required for anybody who filed taxes to authorize the FAFSA to download your information from the IRS. So the parents or any tax filer in the household is going to have to give consent on the application for the FAFSA to perform that function. If you do not consent, you can still submit the FAFSA, but the FAFSA will not be valid and the schools cannot give you financial aid. Okay? So you really don't have much of a choice in that matter. So the FAFSA, though, some things that haven't changed is that it stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. It is free. Do it at studentaid.gov. That is the website. There are websites out there that will ask you to pay to do the FAFSA. If you're ever putting in your credit card information on a FAFSA website, stop immediately, all right? Because you're not in the right place. Every year I hear horror stories of parents who pay $200+ to get the FAFSA filled out, and then I tell them that it's supposed to be free, and they're shocked. But it's, you know, they're not getting the guidance in this information. So make sure you're doing it for free. It uses what we call prior year information. So always remember, if you are starting school, if you're doing the FAFSA for the school year that starts in September of 2024, you're going to be using your tax information from 2 years prior to fill out the FAFSA, so your 2022 taxes, right? It makes sense because even if the FAFSA doesn't come out until December, you won't have your 2023 taxes done by then. So the 2022 is the most recent tax document you can use. One of the big questions you get is, what if my income is different? What if I lost my job, or I had we got divorced and now it's only a single parent household, or I retired? If that's the case, you still have to do your FAFSA based on that prior year income. But after you submit it, you can contact the schools that you're interested in, and you'll have to provide supporting documentation, but they can then reevaluate your financial aid eligibility based on your current situation. All right, so they do take it into consideration. You can have your financial aid reevaluated, but the schools have to perform that function. You have to do the FAFSA based on your prior year income. All right, so federal student ID, FSA ID, student has to have one, and the parents, each parent in the household has to have an FSA ID. All right, that's how you sign the FAFSA. That's how you give electronic consent to submit your IRS data on the FAFSA. Always, if you haven't set this up yet, go set it up a couple days before you do the FAFSA. All right, because it's not official. It has to go through like a government check, so it's not instantly active. So you would need like at least 24 hours between doing that and then filling out the FAFSA. So contributors, what we call contributors on the FAFSA is the parents, okay? It's just a lot of new terminology on the FAFSA this year that essentially means the same things that it meant in previous years, but contributors, for contributors who are undocumented, but the students can still qualify to do the FAFSA. They can't create an FSA ID through the normal means because they need to have a social security number. So now they must use their ITIN, their taxpayer identification number when they file taxes to create the FSA ID. If you don't have that, you would be entering all zeros to identify it. All right, that's how they're going to do it for this new FAFSA in order to get it. Federal tax information, they're just calling it an FTI. Again, you have to give consent in order to do it. That is not a very helpful slide right now, but again, you have to give consent in order for your tax information to be downloaded onto the FAFSA. Key elements, the student has to have a social security number, they have to be pursuing a recognized degree, and going to a school. One difference for the FAFSA this year is that you can add up to 20 colleges. Only the schools you list on the FAFSA are going to be able to access your information and provide you with a financial aid award based on your information. You can't just like call me at St. Elizabeth and say, hey Nick, what am I going to get there? If you don't put St. Elizabeth on the FAFSA, I cannot access it. All right? 20 should be enough for most students. That's new this year. They used to limit it to 10 and never really explained why until this year. They're like, hey, we'll do 20. So now you can list up to 20 schools, but don't feel like you have to fill in 20 schools on the FAFSA when you do it. One great thing about the FAFSA is that you can always go back and change something. Really anything. If you feel like you made a mistake or you want to add a new school at a later date, you can go back, add a new school, make any correction, and resubmit it. All right, so don't ever delay doing the FAFSA because you're not sure what schools you want to send it to. Yes?
So if this isn't coming out now until December, say the end of December, or maybe December 1st, I know that our guidance counselors, they're talking about a decision or an application. How will these schools know? How will we know what we could or can or cannot be getting as far as scholarships, awards, if this financial piece isn't going to be determined until maybe January?
So There's not a like blanket answer for that. That's gonna be, you need to contact the schools that you're applying to, because they won't have your FAFSA information. So your application will sort of be incomplete. Now, that doesn't really matter for early action, because there's no binding decision with early action. You're just getting your admissions decision a little bit earlier, but you can still wait to make a decision. For ED students, for early decision students, it creates a little bit more of a dilemma, because you are committing to a particular school when you apply as an ED student. So how do you commit to that school if you don't really know what your out-of-pocket expense is going to be? I don't know the answer. My school doesn't do early decision. My previous institution did, but so I don't have a good I don't even have an example I can use from my school. But I know at my previous institution, what we used to do was something called early financial aid estimates, where we would ask you to, instead of doing the FAFSA, give us your tax information, give us your high school transcripts, and we'll estimate, we'll basically do a simulation on what the FAFSA would tell you, right? And typically, it's not really an estimate. We would sort of guarantee that money. The problem with that this year is that no school can do that simulation with like even 99% certainty, because we're not totally sure exactly how this calculation is going to go. So I would make sure that you're directing that question to the individual schools that you're interested in. But again, if you're applying EA, early action, it doesn't really matter, because you can wait until you get your FAFSA information to make a decision. All right? So when you do complete the FAFSA, you're going to get this confirmation page. Congratulations, you're all done. All right? On that confirmation page, one of the links, it's going to say, click here to do your state application. Please do that as soon as you're done with the FAFSA. All right? Another reason to do the FAFSA early is that the state of New Jersey has more strict deadlines than the federal government does. And again, the state of New Jersey gives out more money than any state, well, more money per student than any state in the country. You can get up to $14,000 in New Jersey tag funds. You can qualify for that Garden State guarantee and go to community college for free. But if you miss their deadline by one day, you're going to get nothing. Okay? They're very strict with deadlines. And inevitably, every year I see a student who finishes their FAFSA, and then like Monday Night Football's on, they say, okay, I'm going to go and do this again later. And then life happens, and they forget about it, and they get busy with something else, and they don't do it, and they miss the deadline, and they end up going from getting a $14,000 grant to zero. All right? And we don't want that to happen to anybody. What the state of New Jersey does is they use your FAFSA to determine your eligibility. So all you're doing is going to their website, creating a login that will allow them to download your FAFSA. It'll take you 3 minutes. So please do not skip that step. All right? I mentioned verification. Another reason to do your FAFSA early. And let me clarify. When I say do your FAFSA early, if it's available on December 1st, don't do it on December 1st. Okay? Wait at least like 2 weeks after it opens up to do it, because every year there's always like a bug in the system. I remember last year I was doing a financial aid workshop where I would like do the FAFSA with families, and we were doing it on October 3rd, so 2 days after the FAFSA came out, and every time a family put Rutgers as one of the colleges, the whole FAFSA crashed and they had to start over. So obviously that got fixed a couple days later, because Rutgers has 65,000 students who apply for the FAFSA. But it's just one of those things. Wait a week or two to make sure they fix those bugs. But do it early, and another reason is because of verification. The FAFSA itself, random, well, they say it's random, it's not really random, but they tell me to tell you it's random. They randomly select 33% of all FAFSA filers to go through this verification process. If you are selected, you cannot opt out, okay? You have to complete the process or we can't give you financial aid, okay? The good thing is that the process used to be that you'd have to provide schools with your tax information. It's still possible you might have to do that, but it's extremely unlikely now that we'll be downloading it onto your FAFSA from the IRS. So you won't have to actually provide your taxes to the schools, but there will be other stuff, because the verification is basically the schools verifying that what you put on the FAFSA is accurate, all right? Both the schools might request documents from you, and HESA might also select you for verification. So you have to make sure you're responding to those requests. Because again, if you miss deadlines, it could result in the cancellation of your financial aid, especially with the state. But in addition to that, it's rare, but it does happen where we will discover that you made a mistake on the FAFSA, right? It happens. Especially the FAFSA can be confusing. Hopefully that's not the case anymore with the simplification, but if you make a mistake, the schools have to correct it, report it to the FAFSA, and they reevaluate your financial aid eligibility. If that mistake is big enough to potentially change the financial aid that you're eligible for, that's something you want to find out about in May or June. You don't want to find out about that late. You don't want to find out about it at the end of August when you're getting ready to move on campus, or even worse, you don't want to find out about it in the middle of a semester. So it's another reason to do your FAFSA early and get all this stuff early so you can really make sure that everything is final. Yeah.
Is it like associated only with state? What is it like? Is it, what kind of organization?
The verification process is associated with everything. So you can be selected by the federal government, which is the FAFSA verification that the school will perform, or you be selected by the state of New Jersey, and the state HESA will contact you about it. But it could potentially affect everything, because it not only affects your federal or state aid, but institutions that give out need-based financial aid, so anything that's not a scholarship based on academic merit, they're using your FAFSA information to determine your eligibility for that. So if you have a change in the verification process, it could potentially change the aid you're getting from the school as well. So it's very important to get this done early. I know I had a question somewhere over here. Yeah.
What type of verifying information, like documentation, would they request aside from your taxes?
So, again, we don't have all the information on that yet, but as it is now, what they would request essentially is confirming, for most students, is confirming the people in your household, because that is another huge factor in your financial aid eligibility. So you reported 6 people in your household. Now you just fill out a form with the school to say who are these 6 people and confirm that they're actually in your household and that you're supporting them. Other things, they might request something for your high school completion status, if they need to verify that you, like for students who don't complete high school, if they get a GED or they're homeschooled, there's other things, but for the most part, it's your income and your household information that they're verifying. Yeah, in the front.
Do you say school six holidays that you're like you got something?
Sure. So when I say the school's going to perform the verification, when you do the FAFSA, if you send the FAFSA to 20 schools, all 20 schools are going to know that you're selected for this verification process. You only have to complete the process at the school you're attending, right? But no matter which school you attend, you're gonna have to complete that process at that school.
It's not that all 20 schools will ask you that.
No, well, I mean, they might all ask you for it, but you can ignore it from the schools that you're not attending, right? Sure.
I have a question. Today's society, a lot of us, a lot of jobs change. How does it work with this whole state verification? The child starts, graduates in high school here in New Jersey, goes to a state school in New Jersey, but then the parents pick up and move. Do you know how that works with residency?
So-
Over here.
So meaning if the parent is a resident of New Jersey during the student's freshman year, but then the parent may move out of New Jersey in a subsequent year, right? On the FAFSA, you have to report your state of legal residency. So you
Will
do,
that change the child's legal residency because they never
it doesn't change the child's legal residency, but it will change their eligibility for state aid. Because the parents also have to be New Jersey residents in order for the student to qualify. So the student can get it freshman year, but then if the parents, even if you move out halfway through freshman year, they're not gonna revoke your aid, right? But when you apply for the next year, they're gonna see, okay, well, the parents now have their legal residence is Florida, so they no longer qualify for
Because it's on their state, they're probably saying, we don't want them all.
That's exactly true.
Florida's getting the money now.
It's because that you're not paying taxes anymore in New Jersey as a New Jersey resident. That's why they.
So I consider it a limbo for a year because it's prior to no longer a resident.
That's a really good question. The answer is no, because when we're talking about prior year, and that is a very confusing point. We're only talking about your income, okay? Everything else, even when the FAFSA asks questions about assets, like your investments, but when they talk about your household and your residency, that is as of the day you fill the FAFSA out. So the only thing that's considered prior year is your verifiable taxable income. Yeah.
So for example, like a household member is based on prior year or current year?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So like if you need to mention like a household member, right? So it should be like as of now or like 2022?
Well, that is another good question, because that is a change on the new FAFSA. So anybody who's done a FAFSA before, this is gonna be something you're gonna have to adjust to. It used to be, as of today, the household members, right? Because the rule used to be, it didn't matter who you claimed on your taxes. Your household would be the parents, the student, and whoever else lives with the parents and is supported financially by those parents, right? That would be the household. That can include the student's siblings, that can include grandma if she lives with you, whatever. Now, all that's out the window, and it's the exact opposite. The household is simply going to be the parents, the tax filers, and whoever they claim as dependents on the taxes. Okay, so because of that change, the household size is also prior year. But just like changes in your income, that you would say, okay, I'm unemployed now, and you go to the school and you ask them to do what we call special circumstances adjustment to reevaluate your aid. If there's a significant difference between your household size currently and what you claimed on your taxes previously, the schools can also do that same sort of change for you in that sense, right? But you would only want to do that change if you're adding people to the household, not if you're subtracting them. All right?
If the student has an adult sibling living at home that's full-time employed that has their own income, that income would not be part of our application, correct?
Meaning, would you have to report that as house? No, you're only reporting parents' income and the income from the student themselves, if they have any.
Otherwise, someone's getting food.
Don't use me as an excuse to do. All right, so I mentioned about the undocumented students. You do the New Jersey alternative application on the HESA website. The HESA, just so you're not confused, HESA website is HESA.org, HESAA.org, but the financial aid portal that you're going to log into and create your profile is called NJFAMS, New Jersey Financial Aid Management System. It's also where you'll do the application for New Jersey Dreamers. Okay? When you log into NJFAMS, this is like the main page, what it's going to look like. You probably can't read it, but on the top is your to-do list. That's where you'll see if the state is selecting for verification or if they're requesting any documentation from you. I'm sorry, I'm not even standing by the microphone. If they're requesting any documentation from you. So check your to-do list. If you create this profile the same day you do the FAFSA, which you all should do, it'll probably say at the bottom in red, your FAFSA for academic year 24-25 has not yet been received. Don't panic if you see that, because that's perfectly normal, because it's going to take them a couple days before they're able to download it. But once they're able to download it, you'll be able to view it on here, you'll be able to see your eligibility, you'll be able to apply for any of those scholarships if you're in the top 15 or top 5% of your class, and see if you're eligible for anything. So we're taking a lot of time, but real quick, I want to talk about cost of attendance, because new rules, the FAFSA is not the only thing that changed, and they're like overhauling all the financial aid policy, and the new rules is that we have to publicize cost of attendance a lot more than we have been. And cost of attendance is different from the cost of the school. So if you go on a school's website and you see tuition fees, room and board, it costs $30,000 a year, that's great. And then right next to it, it says cost of attendance, $45,000 a year. And how does that make any sense? Why are those two numbers different? And the reason is because tuition fees, room and board is what we call direct costs. Cost of attendance includes direct costs and something called indirect costs, which are other expenses that you're going to have to plan to have and budget for just by virtue of attending college, like books and supplies is the most obvious one. But then there's travel. You got to take the train home on Thanksgiving or have gas in the car to come home on the weekends. You got to have laundry money while you're living on campus. Those sorts of things that you just have to, by virtue of attending college, budget for. They're built into your cost of attendance, and your cost of attendance becomes your maximum amount of financial aid eligibility. And that goes back to what I talked about before, how students overborrow. Because some of these schools have a cost of attendance that's $20,000, $25,000 more than what it actually costs to go there. And students can borrow up to that cost of attendance amount and then get these massive rebates that they can use to pay for those educational expenses. And again, that's how you, one main reason you'll inadvertently overborrow. But the cost of attendance, again, the SAI talked about, that's the number the FAFSA is giving you to say this is how much money you could pay out of pocket. Don't panic when you see it. It is not indicative of how much you actually have to pay. It's just a tool to use to determine your eligibility. Because when we talk about financial need, that is simply cost of attendance minus your SAI minus any other grants and scholarships you have. And then whatever number's left over is what we're considering to be that gap in what it will cost you to attend college and what you have resources to pay. So this is just a little bit of exercise here to show you how the same student will have different financial need depending on what different schools they go to. So this student has an SAI of $8,667. In this example, that does not qualify them for any federal Pell Grant or anything like that. But at the community college, the cost of attendance is $8,000. Their SAI is more than that, so they have no financial need at this community college. At a state college, cost is more. Now this same student has over $20,000 of financial need. And again, at the private school, their financial need is a whopping $50,000. So the same student who had no financial need at all at a community college is considered to be in need of $50,000 at a private institution. But again, those private institutions use their own institutional funds to help make up the gap, not between them and the community colleges, but at least between them and the state institutions. So, the timeline. We asked about early action and early decision, but right now, the cycle starting, this will usually say October, but starting in December, you can do your financial aid application. You're doing all your admissions applications. Another reason to do the FAFSA early, again, doesn't apply for the early action students this year, but this year's an anomaly. But do the FAFSA early because if you apply regular admission, you're going to be getting your admissions notifications in February and March. Congratulations, you have been admitted to your dream school. If you don't have your FAFSA done by then, that admissions letter is not worth anything because you don't know what it's going to cost you to go to that school. If you have your FAFSA done, you're going to get your admissions letter, you're going to get your financial aid letter, probably all together in the same package, and then you have all the information you need right at your fingertips to make a decision on whether a particular school is right for you. All right, so make sure you get that FAFSA done. June and July, you usually do your orientation in June. You'll register for classes. In July, you'll get that first bill, and then, yeah, and then you're well on your way to paying your college bills. So very exciting. So again, where do you go from here? Make sure you're doing the FAFSA early. Make sure you're looking for scholarships. They put this on here because this is another new law. There are new financial aid award letter templates out there. There's two different versions of them. This is the state version, but every school you apply to in the state of New Jersey is going to be providing this to you as part of your financial aid award letter. Some schools will only give you this. Some schools will give you their own institutional award letter too. So if you get two different financial aid award letters, don't be weirded out by that. It's the school wanting to present the same information in a different way because we're all required to give you this form. And please don't tell the state of New Jersey I told you this. This form is very well intentioned, but the execution is not great. It is very confusing, okay? So if you only get this form from a school, if a school does not have their own companion award letter with it, make sure that you're asking questions about it if you have any sort of doubt about what you're looking at. So yeah, that's the form you're going to get to show you your financial aid. So make sure you're looking at all the resources. Talk to the financial aid offices at your school. Not only are we the experts, but really when you're going through the college process of deciding where you want to attend, admissions counselors are really good at making everything look all sunshine and rainbows. But if you really want to know what the customer service is going to be like that you're going to be dealing with for 4 years at a school, contact your financial aid offices, okay? They're not trained admissions counselors, so they're not going to be, they're not going to be the salesman. So you really want to, they'll give you a good glimpse of what you're going to be dealing with for 4 years, but they really should be able to help you through this process. All right, website's up here, FastWeb is up here, that's a scholarship search. They always put this at the end of the presentation. If we're all seniors here, probably a little too late to invest in a 529 plan, but if you're in the market for one, the state of New Jersey has one, and Depending on how long and how much you invest, you can also get a scholarship of up to $3,000. That's available on the HESA website. HESA also has other resources on their website to help you, like web-based resources to help you in applying for financial aid. Again, all this is helpful. Maybe I'm old school. I like to talk to a person, so again, just contact the schools. And that's it. I'm here for questions if you have them.